What's up guys, I'm PawsBuild, and in this series we're going to create an ethical, eco-friendly zoo in Planet Zoo. That means we'll be playing in franchise mode on normal difficulty, but we're adding the restrictions that animal ethics must be at the forefront of all of our decisions, including only breeding animals that are near threatened status or worse. And everything we build must be done in the most eco-friendly, sustainable way we can, using sustainable materials, creating biodiverse wildlife areas to offset our built-up areas, and recycling water where we can. We've done an ethical zoo and an eco-friendly zoo on the channel before, so I thought it would be a lot of fun to combine both of these concepts and see what we can come up with. I hope you enjoy. And this is our zoo. We're in farmland, what it looks like, in North America. And if I keep turning the camera, you can see here we got some really cool terrain because we've gone for the sculpted map. So we've got, as you come in from the zoo, you can see we have this huge hill here with what looks like caves already built into it. So that'll be interesting. We can kind of explore that as we expand the zoo. And we've got this very nice kind of pre-dug lake area, it looks like to me. And then just a couple of hills that we can probably utilize in our builds. This one will be very interesting because that is quite a cliff. But for now, we just need to start in front of our entrance here. We need to get our first paths in. So if we click on paths, we can choose what kind of path we want to go for. And we've got the asphalt already here, but I think seeing as we're trying to be environmentally friendly, it would be better for us to go for some kind of wooden one, like logs maybe, or tree bark. Tree bark could be a good shout. If we look down here though, we have got the natural paths. These might actually be nicer because we're not really, there's no real need to do anything to the ground. It's just going to be dirt anyway. We can obviously put different ground on our actual guest areas where we're seating people or something like that, so it doesn't feel outside. But the paths between things don't really make that much of a difference. And we've currently, if we go into our settings, we've got the curbs turned on, but we've got our railing on ground path turned on. And I quite like this because it means that if people are bringing kids to the park, they're not just running off and jumping into a rhino habitat, you know, or just running off into the woods, because this is really in the middle of nowhere. I feel like we can help the parents out who are visiting by just adding some fencing along. And actually, maybe this natural path here is a good one, because it has got some interesting wooden fences. If we have a look at these, I think they're pretty good. They're quite cute. So I think we'll build out with this one. We need to get the right width for our path. So I think 7 meters is what we start off with, and that is about right. So let's go with 7 meters. And then I just want to build out kind of into the zoo, into the land that we have. I'm just getting a nice straight path here. And then we can go from there with what we want to design up. It would be quite nice to have a first habitat kind of in this section near the entrance, maybe even one on the other side, and then we can have a nice big plaza for our guests where they can buy stuff, they can have some food and drink, and we can probably throw our staff buildings in there too. So with that as kind of a provisional plan, I think let's start building the first habitat for our zoo. The first animal that I'd like to get in the zoo is the brand new bush dog. I'm very excited to see these guys, and they're near threatened. So that is important. I want all of the animals in this zoo to be kind of at least near threatened. We need a reason to be breeding them. I don't want least concern or domesticated animals in here because that doesn't really align with our whole thing of it being ethical. Like, this is designed so that it's more of a breeding zoo where it's a necessity rather than having the animals in captivity when their population numbers are absolutely fine. And unfortunately, the bush dog have suffered quite a lot from agricultural land conversion, so they've lost a lot of habitat, and we can give them a little bit back now. If we click on species data in the Zoopedia, we can see that these guys live in a group size of 2 to 12. So we can have up to 11 males and up to 11 females, so just one of the other. That's really interesting. Or we can have bachelor sizes of 2 to 4 males and 2 to 4 females. I'm thinking, let's go for a nice breeding group. I don't know how many we're going to have, but I think we'll have to see how many are available. But if we know the maximum size is 12, we can go from there when we click on our natural habitat tab and we see the minimum habitat requirements. So if we put in that we're going to have 12 adults maybe, and let's say half of that as juveniles as well. We're going to have 12 adults and 6 juveniles. That takes us to a nice even number, actually, of 1,200 meters squared. Now we know how big the habitat has to be. We also know that they don't need climbing enrichment. They do want some water area, though. So we need 1,200 meters of land and 425 meters of water. That is important. They really like their water, but they don't need deep water. So they're kind of more shallow, splashing around kind of animals. And then the fencing requirements, grade 2, taller than 1.25 meters. That is our little fences. That's absolutely fine. We can easily do that with some 1.5 meter fencing even. It's probably easy for us to do, or even 2 meters. But we want to have it low if we can, because I think these guys are quite little. So you don't want to obscure the view for the guests. And whilst their natural biome isn't temperate, I do think that they'll be absolutely fine in this zoo, because then their temperature requirements 13 to 42 degrees Celsius, and that's pretty normal for a temperate climate here. If it gets a bit colder, we'll have a heated area to make sure that they're staying warm during some of the colder months. But I don't think we're going to get too cold in this area. Like 13 degrees should be fine most of the year, I would hope. Though I haven't played on this map before, so let's see how cold it gets here. Right now, it's a beautiful 26 degrees C. So I think that should be fine. As the bush dogs' minimum land requirement for their habitat is 1,200 meters squared, we're going to put in around 2,400 meters squared to give them double what they need. And then the same for the water. They need 425 meters squared, so we're going to give them 850 meters squared. And in total, this whole habitat should be 3,250 meters squared, which is actually quite a big habitat. It's a reasonable size habitat. And that is before we add in things like enrichment and plants like trees that are going to reduce the actual navigable land area. But I think it's a good rule of thumb to use, where we're going to double the habitat size and then add in that stuff, because they're definitely going to have a habitat that's big enough for them that they can be comfortable and thrive in. The first thing I'm going to want to do is take our barriers and put this small wooden habitat gate in. And we do have the choice between the normal size habitat gates and the small ones. But as their fencing requirement is really low, we only need the small one to stop them getting out. I think the small one's 2 meters, and whereas the large one is 4 meters. And I want to just position it a little bit further back from the fence, just to give a little bit of space here. I want it to be close by, but not immediately next to where our walkway is. And then we're going to use null barriers the whole way along, because I want to design up a unique fence that's just for the habitat. If we put the length on this to be 10 meters, I think we can build this out to be the right size and then go from there. I think 3,300 is good enough for this habitat. We're aiming for 3,250, so 3,300 is pretty close there. So now we've got our barrier in. This isn't going to work for an actual habitat, as obviously it's an invisible barrier that, you know, when you click off it, they can just walk straight through. So we need to put a physical barrier in the way. I'm going to turn this into null barriers too. So we just have our fence, then nothing. And we're going to need to use the construction pieces to build in our own habitat area. And we can kind of do this however we want. But I would like to use, if possible, I'm going to filter them by material and look at any wood pieces we have, because that's obviously going to be the most sustainable objects that we have. And I'm sure we can find some cool wooden pieces that can be used to build a 2 meter fence or thereabouts. If we get our 2 meter planks, where are they? Like a wood wall 2 meter, you can see that this is very high. So actually, I think this fence might be 1.25 meters high. But it'll be suitable for these the bush dogs, don't worry. And my plan for this, instead of just going and building a fence the whole way around the outside and then adding decorations to it, I'm gonna design up a few fence pieces and then fit them the whole way around the outside. When building this fence section, I really wanted to use sustainable materials, and none of the wood pieces were jumping out at me until I saw the bamboo pieces, and I thought, this is perfect. They're South American, which fits in perfectly with the bush dogs, and they look great. So I decided I would use bamboo heavily to build our low fence around the bush dog habitat. I quite like this. It's very simple, but I think it's quite cute. And if we have another piece like here, we can alternate them as well and maybe change the leaves up that are on the front. So let's delete this leaf as well. And then we can probably add some different ones in. So it just looks a bit more varied. And then we should just be able to duplicate these so that they align nicely. I'm going to actually have to move this one over. And then we can duplicate them so that they slot in every other one, basically. And I'm going to put one over here. This isn't going to be in the habitat. And then I'm also going to just duplicate this one over here. So I can easily grab them and duplicate them. And I don't have to worry about them being next to each other. So we've done that the whole way around the outside. Now we need to just decorate up our entrance there and delete these panels. I'm going to delete them at the end just in case we need them for anything. But we're almost there, just the entrance to go. There we go. I feel like that's pretty good. Let's delete our additional pieces here that we don't need. And it's fairly simplistic. My reasoning is that most people should be able to see over this into the habitat. Now I'm looking at it though, I do think this fence might be a little bit high for some of the children. Adults will be fine because this is a very low fence. I mean, this is just over 1 meter fence. So this is kind of a waist height gate. Adults will easily see over this, but children are going to struggle, I think. So let's maybe just put a couple of breakpoints where we add some glass viewing and just create a hole in the fence on this side effectively where the guests are going to see them. I'm also just going to extend this path along this way because I think this will give some nice viewing for the guests as well. And I think I'll just take it to there. So they've got 2 sides of the habitat touching the path. Okay, that's much better. We've just added in all the glass and the viewing areas, and now there's definitely spaces where people can easily see through. If the adults can see over the fence, great, but the kids can definitely see under the fence on these areas where the fence is kind of elevated. So I like that. The next thing we need to do is put a nice water area in for them, and this over here seems like the perfect place because that's going to be their main play area. Now, if we're roughly marking out, this is going to be 20 meters. We need one of these across, and then 2 of them up, and that should be about 800 meters squared. So if we're marking like that, this whole area here would need to be their water area, unless we have a little section that comes off, which might actually be nicer. So I've just taken this down by 10 meters and added it over here, and I think this area is about 800 meters squared. So if we have this in our minds, this is how much space we need for the water area. Let's delete this and actually build it in. So to build it in, we need to go into terrain, and then we're going to use the push brush. We might actually use the terrain stamp tool, and this way we can get a more accurate reading on it as well. So height, I think we only want to go 4 meters. That we don't want more than that down. And then width, let's do 10. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get this to be as straight as possible, and then hit X. And then we should be able to pull this up and make it even shallower. Yeah, I think we want it about here. We don't want it to be very deep. I believe this will be about 2 meters, which should be a good shallow pool for them. And then we can click tick, and it'll dig that down. This seems a good depth, I think. Let's do that, and then let's build it out. So they're going to have 1, 2, 3, and then we want to go this way for 2. And as you can see, I'm just moving this around with the arrows and then clicking tick when I want to dig out. And if we get these little bits here, it's fine. You can just go over them again and dig them out. It's going to dig to the same height. That's why it's really important that we stay in the advanced move tool so we can get exactly the same edges. And the same here. I want to make sure that this blue edge on the left-hand side is straight so that it digs the same size along here. This is about 800. We take this down to be about 5 meters in width. We should be able to get our 50. And I think I'm just going to take this out of the corner here and make it less of an odd shape there. This should be about 850 meters squared. I can see I've done an error. I've come out of the terrain mode while this is still here. I'm just going to use the push tool, turn the intensity down very low, and then just do that, and it'll quickly remove that area. And then what we can do is we can smooth out these edges. So I'm going to turn the brush size down, and then I think maybe put this on like about 20% intensity, and I just want to smooth the edges a bit. That area will need a bit of attention because it looks quite strange having it like that. But I do want to smooth all the way around to make it more of a slope in. And we could have some more varied height. That might be more fun for them, honestly. So we can always go back to this tool. And now we're in this area. We can maybe near the middle, it gets a little bit deeper. If we turn it back to maybe about 15 meters in the center, this could be a little bit deeper. So if we have it come up again, but just very slightly dropping down, that might be more fun for them. I don't know how deep they're going to want to swim. But this is kind of a pool that we've made for them that should be quite fun. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to smooth this area even more. So it's a bit of a ramp in. I might even just pull in the middle. And push these sections down. Just to make it more of a ramp in. And I believe this should be 850 meters squared. So let's go on our water tool and finally put the water in. Look at that. That's huge. And how much have we got? Oh, we got 1,000. I've overshot. So we can always right-click the water if we want. And then we can go on our terrain tools. Maybe we should pull some of the sections back. Or maybe just really smooth this area out. Turn up to like 60. Kind of smooth this area to take back some of the water. We can even flatten to foundation and just pull this wall along a little bit. Don't need to go quite so far out. But I think this is going to be pretty close to what they're after. There we go, 981. I'm going to call that good. That seems good to me. And we've got a couple of viewing areas that can look on to them playing in the water. And then we've got one over here on the nice land area. And I'm thinking maybe we have some bedding back here. And we could do some viewing into that. But I want that to be very quiet if that is the case. I don't want it to be noisy for them. And actually, I think I'm going to put their bedding elsewhere. Because I just feel like from an ethical standpoint, they shouldn't have to put up with people being noisy when they're sleeping. It makes the most sense to put their sleeping area as far away from the noise as can be. And given that this is the entrance to the whole zoo as well, I think the back corner over here, just trying to get it further away, maybe here is a good spot for it. So let's build that next. We're going to go into construction. We're going to get our wooden pieces again. Material wood. And I think we used the bamboo before. I think maybe we'll actually make this out of wood. So I might use the Australia wood because I do think it's a very nice texture. And I don't know how high this needs to be. This might be better to see when they're in here, but I think 2 meters should be high enough on the walls for them. So I'm going to create a few little huts around the back that they can sleep in, just using the wooden pieces. And then for the roof, probably we could go for a nice thatched roof. I think that might look cute. I think that looks cute. And now we just need to put some bedding in for them. So if you go to habitat, we can filter by the species. You can just type it in here as well, but I like to just filter by the bush dog since it starts with B anyway. And then we can go probably medium-sized bedding and just add a couple of bits of bedding in here. Maybe some small as well. Just so they've got some nice area to sleep in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put random rotation on for these as well. I think that looks quite cute. They've got a few little places to sleep. We need to sort that out and make sure they're the right height, but we can easily just pull these buildings up and they'll be correct for the habitat. So I think really the next thing we want to do is get them in here because that'll determine what we want to do for our outside playing area and things like that. I want to see them in here and kind of get the feel for how they interact with the habitat first and how big they are and what it's going to look like. So for now, let's call this habitat good and move on to the next step, which is getting some staff. If you click on the zoo tab and then click staff, the first staff we're going to need is a keeper, a vet, a caretaker, and a mechanic. So this is our little superhero squad. They're going to do their superhero jump right now. Pow. This is our core team. We're going to need these 4 staff members to kick things off. And you can see we're already getting alerts that we don't have the buildings that they need because we don't. I'm going to also click this challenges just to clear the notification. It sets some challenges for us to hit and then we can start getting some rewards. But for now, no one's going to come to the zoo because there's no animals in here and there's just 4 people walking around with nothing to do. So to kick things off, let's build them a little staff area. And I'm not going to decorate this up because, to be honest, we don't have the money if nothing else. I don't want to spend money on it right now and I'd rather just get the zoo up and running. So let's continue our path along here. And I think we have our staff area around here. Maybe this is like the entrance. If we build a little path there, that can be the entrance to our staff area over here. So all I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a 4-meter path and extend it along. I'm also going to add in, if we go facilities, under bins, benches, and security, we should have the barriers that we want. Yeah, so I want little guest barrier curbs, I think, that say no guests allowed in this zone. You can use the staff paths, but I just find them to be quite ugly, honestly. And I'm going to just push this into just past the fence post there. So this is a staff-only zone. And we can maybe put a sign up saying that when we decorate this area. But this is good enough for now, so guests won't go down here. And the reason you don't want to do that is because guests don't like staff buildings. For some reason, they really don't like staff buildings. So if we click and turn the blueprints off, I'm just going to put the basic ones that we need along this area, and they will be moved later. For now, the starting buildings we need are the Animal Trade Center, so we can actually get some animals. Then we're going to need a small keeper hut, so we can look after our animals. A small quarantine to house the animals when we get them and check that they're okay, or if we get any disease outbreaks. A veterinary surgery to treat animals if we do get a disease outbreak. And a staff room so our staff can chill out when they're actually doing their jobs and they're a little bit tired. Now, I'm also going to go one step further and I'm going to get a research center and a workshop so we can do a bit more. We can unlock a few more things, essentially. All of these are connected up, so they should work perfectly fine. So the research center is for your vets. So you're going to get more stuff for your animals, like enrichment, bonus, like boosts to your knowledge about them when you're teaching guests. Things like that, which are really good for them. Better food as well as a key one for us, trying to be ethical as possible. And then the mechanics do their research in the workshop, and that can unlock scenery pieces and solar power and other things. And that brings me nicely onto the next thing we're going to need, which is power. This area isn't very well powered, and the staff are going to have absolutely nothing. And you can see all of these buildings need power apart from the Animal Trade Center. So I'm going to go into facilities and just grab utilities, solar panel. And I'm going to put this just in here at the end. This is not where you'd put a solar panel right next to a building like that. but it's going to work. I think it's also facing away from the sun. Just the worst positioning possible. But that's fine. And that is a very funky fence. I don't know who installed that fence like that. It's almost impressive how badly they've done that. And now we've got all of our staff sorted out. And crucially, we've got the Animal Trade Center building here. We can start getting our first animals. So if you go to the Animal Trading tab, you can then search for the species we want. We want bush dog. And then we can see which ones are available. It looks like there's only 3 boys available now, but that's fine. And they're all from Frontier Zoo, so we know that they're not related. I'm just going to check the Zoopedia again, just to see how long they live for. So they live to be 20, and they can breed until 10 years old. So that's okay. And from 2 years, so they're all able to breed. At the minute, we can only have 2 to 4 males. So I think maybe we get them. And it looks like at the time we were checking that out, a couple more have come onto the market, which are a little bit better genetically. And we've got a female, crucially. So I think let's adopt this female. And then if we're looking for a mate for them, it might be better to go with this one. I'm just thinking about their age. So I believe if we get one that's older, that is going to be the one that's going to be breeding, because there's only an alpha pair that breed. So family packs are led by an alpha pair. I assume that will be the oldest ones. But please let me know in the comments if I'm wrong. But I think that it's the oldest ones that become the alphas. So then if we're looking at the genetics of the males available, I feel like as far as having kind of an ethical breeding program, we want to get one that's got great genetics in on the breeding. So let's get this one, because they've got really good genes generally. Like as a starting point, this is very good. So let's adopt them. And then I think we'll leave the others. If they were younger, we could get some more. And maybe in the future, we'll add some more to the habitat. But for now, 2 is probably okay. And it meets their minimum threshold. They need 2 to 12. So we can see if any more come in the market. You can refresh it here. And if any more come on, we could maybe have a look. And if they're younger, we can add them to the zoo as well. But for now, I think we've got enough. So if we go to Animal Trading now and go to the Animal Storage tab, we can then grab both of these. And you can then put them straight in the habitat. But what I'm going to do is put them in quarantine just so they can get a once over from our vet and see if they've got any scrapes or illnesses that we want to pick up first. So if I hit play, our vet is now going to run there. And I'm actually just going to move them ourselves and drop them outside, because it's a little bit quicker to be picked up by us. And they're going to move them from the Animal Trade Center into quarantine, and they'll get a bit of a checkup. And our caretaker is moving the other one across, because caretakers can also move animals around. And one thing I think I've missed is this water area has no treatment. So we need to do that before they get in the habitat. So let's go facilities, utilities, and then we're going to need water treatment and water temperature regulator, because these guys have specific temperatures that they're comfortable at. And if it gets colder here, they're not going to want to be in the cold. I think they'll handle the heat a bit better, but the cold, we want to make sure they're okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe extend this path along. So if we make this 7 meters, we can have this go to there. And then I want to just take a 4-meter path down the end. That's not going to quite work out. So I'm going to extend it a little bit further. And then we can have a 4-meter path that comes off of this one. And if you hold down control, you can then place the path like freely. So I think if we have a path here, that can then connect in. And then this one's gone a bit strange. You can even delete this. And then it will have a nice curve to it around the end. So I think that's fine. And what we'll do again is we'll just go in facilities under security. We'll put a little guest curb so that the guests know they're not allowed in this section. Let's put the guest curb there. We're also having them pass quarantine. So one of our bush dogs has passed quarantine. That's great. But we're not quite done. So let's continue this path along here. And I think we want to have our water treatment around here. I don't want it too far out in the open, but it does have a negative influence on our guests. So when you click on it, it'll automatically open the water tab. If you scroll to negative impact on guests, you can see this big red ring. This is where we don't want guests to be. And if we look on the blue, it's got a huge area that it can work in. And I'm thinking if we put it more centrally over here, actually, it might be able to get 2 habitats, which would be worth it for the cost. So let's carefully plan. I think if it goes somewhere like here, that would be fine. So I'm going to put this here, and that gives us a decent ring for another habitat, because it just has to touch the water area. It doesn't have to cover it. So you can see it's gone blue because it's within this radius. And then we also have to think about power, actually. I didn't consider the power. This is not going to be powered out here. So we're going to need a solar panel to go with it. And I'm going to put this next door. Again, this is going to have a radius on it, though I don't think the solar power panels are as big. Oh, they don't have one. Okay. I think the transformers do. Yeah, the transformers do, but solar panels don't because they're eco-friendly. And obviously, we've got to go for the eco-friendly one. So I'm going to put a solar panel here and then a water temperature regulator just next door as well. In fact, I might even angle it like this. And then we can have a little path that connects all of this up. Okay, I think that works. There's a little slope in here, and then there's a little area for them to fix, and we can definitely decorate this up so it doesn't look quite as ugly. When building this little maintenance area, I wanted it to be in keeping with the bush dog habitat that it's next to, so bamboo pieces were the obvious choice, and the thatched roofs look so good with those pieces, and they're all from the South America pack, so it works perfectly with the bush dogs. So I decided to create a hut around the water treatment facilities and then have the solar panel off to the side. And realistically, the solar panel needed to be elevated, otherwise it's not going to get any sun. So I raised it up and decided I'd use a ramp to make it more accessible than stairs. And then realized that where the ramp is, that is now impossible for any less abled worker to access. So I had to move it back so that there was a bit of flat area for them to actually work on, rather than making them work on a slope. Okay, so this wasn't meant to be quite as elaborate as this, but we've made a little utilities hut over here. So we've got our water treatment here that keeps the water clean. We've got our water temperature regulator here, which obviously regulates the temperature of our water. And then we've got a solar panel, which I've elevated because I don't know why the solar panel would just be on the floor next to a hut. Like, it's not going to get very good light. So I'm going to assume that this rotates, is very clever and rotates and follows the sun on this little arm here, which it kind of looks like it does. And then it's at least elevated so it can get more sun, because at the minute the sun is behind over there, but it will cross over. So I feel like it's going to get some reasonable sun exposure. And then obviously because it's elevated, we're going to need some kind of access up. And I put a ramp in to be more accessible so that hopefully someone should be able to go up here and stop at the top and then repair it and then come down. Although it is quite steep, but it's okay. I think they'll manage. I think it will be fine. And now they're in here, the water will be clean and this habitat is ready for our animals who have passed quarantine. So let's click on these guys here and send both of them to the habitat. And then we can change the name of the habitat as well. So instead of Habitat 9, it's going to be Bush Dogs. And now we've done that, our guys are going to run and grab them and then take them in. And here they come. The first animals in our new zoo. Ooh, I'm excited. Here's the vet. Oh, they're only little. Oh, look how small they are. The little bush dogs. So is this the male or the female? This is the female. And then what does the male look like? Very similar. Oh, look at them. Oh, well, please suggest some names for these in the comments, guys, and we will rename all of the animals in this zoo to whatever you guys think. So suggest what you want, and we'll have them renamed as soon as possible. Oh, look at them. I think they'll like this habitat. What do they think of it? If we go terrain, we can see they're happy with the swimming area. They're happy with the land area. And they don't like this much long grass. So we can fix that. But they're pretty happy generally with terrain. So the next thing we need to do effectively is make it so that like the habitat meets all of their needs. So let's go into terrain and start doing that. If we go painting, we can take out some of this long grass. So I'm going to go short grass, maybe on 30%, and just kind of get rid of some of this in place of long grass. And that's probably enough. I could have left this up actually so we could see. So yeah, they're happy with this amount. They could even get rid of a bit more. So I'm just going to take it out over here as well. Just thinning the grass really. Not fully mown, but it's in the middle, and that is 100% on everything. They're happy with all of that. We could even add a little bit of light soil around the areas that they, you know, they've worn down by playing. They go in and out of here a lot, and maybe a little route to the water. The grass would be a little bit less thick here, wouldn't it? And then a bit more thinned out grass along the sides of that. I think that looks pretty good to me. And look at the beautiful sun that we've got. Is it sunset already? Oh, so the sun sets on that side. Wow. Okay, well, let's see if we can get any more in here. I'm going to go animal trading and see if we've got any more bush dogs. We do, and they're younger. So there's another female, but she's really not good genetically. I'm wondering ethically whether we should take her. Probably not, and I think these are older than our male. So let's just double check the age of our male. Yeah, he's 4.7. I'd rather get ones that are younger than him so that we're not competing. So I'll leave these for now. Look at them in the sunset, having a little swim. Oh, I love it. Now, our zoo is going to get a bit dark, so I'm just going to adjust the hours of our zoo. So if we go on the main zoo tab, you can see the name of our zoo. This is our ethical eco zoo. And I'm just going to make it so it closes a little bit earlier. It's going to close at 10. Which is kind of after sunset there. And then I think this is now 5 a.m. we're going for, which is super early. I'm going to make it so it's maybe 6 a.m. I feel like 6 till 10 is quite a long shift for our staff. But they're managing. In fact, I think it's wound back time. I don't know quite how this works when you change it as you're going. If we make this like 9... Okay, we're gonna close at 8. We're gonna do 6 till 8 opening hours. I think that's pretty reasonable. You don't normally go to the zoo after 8 p.m, do you? So 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. seems good to me, and it's nice and light now. We can obviously adjust that. Let me know what you guys think as well, because I want it to be visible, but I also want to get some nice, nice angles of these guys. You've got the beautiful light coming in. I mean, the game is very, very beautiful, and you can spend a long time just watching them do their thing. But we've not finished making this habitat everything that they need. So terrain is good. Perfect. Another thing we're missing is enrichment. And this one is crucial. And they also, although it's not here yet, they don't have any food. So that can kind of go hand in hand with enrichment. If we go on habitat, I'm going to click filters, species, and filter by the bush dog. Which is here. And this will show us everything that's relevant to them. Everything that they're going to like. And thankfully, because we've done a zoo before, we've got a few things already that that work with them. I've just realized they have animal burrows as well. So they're actually a burrow animal. I love that I've made these little dog houses for them and they sleep in burrows. So what we're going to do is we're going to basically put in a nice burrow for them. I think one is fine for these guys because they're quite communal and there's only 2 of them right now. So let's just put a burrow maybe in the middle of this area where they're going to commonly go to. And we'll try and like hide it under something because realistically they would, they're not just going to have a hole in the center of the ground. It'd probably be under something like a log. I think just this log, if we put some nature around it, I think that will blend in quite nicely. And we can always have another one just kind of around here, so it doesn't look that strange if we roll it as well. So it's not exactly the same. I think this could be quite natural for them, having this here. So we've got a couple of logs, and this one they put a little, they burrowed underneath the log. I think that makes sense, generally. And they've got a little burrow underground. So then our burrow is going to be, if you click on it, they've got a little burrow down here where they can sleep. And that's actually the hard shelter that they're going to want. So we have got some, with these little dog houses, we can maybe convert them into a bit of a play area if we make them a bit bigger. And then they've got more indoor area. Or this can be where they nap in the day. If they want to take a little nap above ground, this is probably quite a safe space for them to do that in, because they're secured at the back. It's a bit like a burrow. They would probably be happy with that. So the other items of enrichment they need, they're going to need some food. So I think let's put 2 food in, like 2 food enrichment and 3 toys, and see how we go with that. We're going to get a bamboo feeder. They're neutral about humans, so I don't mind putting these a bit closer to the guests. I'm going to put one here, and then another food enrichment that's a bit further in. I don't know if we've got another one, actually, looking at it. That might be the only one we have access to right now. Oh, a block of ice, I think, is food. Although not really. It's more drink. And the other one's on food. Oh, they've got a tunnel. That's amazing. Okay. I think that's probably... Oh, a skittle feeder. There we go. Skittle feeder can go over here. So they've got a couple of food enrichments, so our keepers can put food in those. If they have any additional, they can put them in a food tray. So let's get a small food tray and whack that, like, around this log, maybe. And they can eat here. And then they're going to want some interesting stuff. So we could put a submarine boy in. I don't think it's deep enough for that. Let's add a sprinkler. Let's have a sprinkler over here. And then we've got to have that tunnel, don't we? I think the tunnel is amazing. Let's put a little tunnel over here. Then maybe a tennis ball. Let's have a tennis ball over here. And see how they go with that. So what do they think? Enrichment, they've got 100%. They love that for enrichment. And then we can maybe swap them out as we go along. We're not on hard difficulty, so we don't need to do that. Like, they're not going to get bored of them. But I think for realism, we should swap out the food enrichment and the toys every so often. So just to keep them fun for them. Because I would get bored if I had the same toys all the time, you know? And then we go animal market. Let's see if there are any more. If we refresh the list, have we got any more bush dogs? No. And the last one they're missing is plants. Now, these guys are going to want plants from South and Central America. And really, I mean, the grassland, tropical, and aquatic, we can probably make these plants work in this climate. I think realistically, with enough care, you can make any of the plants work in the climate you're in. You just need to look after them and give them the right, give them the right things. I may be quite uninformed about plants, though. But I think some of these trees could survive in this climate here. And then we've got to make sure that they've got enough plant coverage. So they want at least, well, it looks like 25% plant coverage. So they're going to want quite a lot. And maybe we throw some rocks in as well. Make their water area a bit more interesting. I wanted to use these mossy rocks because they look realistic and like they've been there for a while with the water. And I also wanted to make a bit of a water feature on one end of the habitat. And I went very back and forth with whether I use the waterfall pieces that are amazing or whether I try and make something out of the waterfall effects. And in the end, I just decided to go with the waterfall pieces because they make everything look so good. And these waterfall pieces just work in so many habitats. I absolutely love them. And you can cover them with rocks so it looks like a little flowing stream. And of the trees that we filtered here, so the tropical grassland aquatic trees that you find in Central and South America, these are the ones that can survive in temperate North America where we are. So that's actually quite a few to play with. So I'm going to add some of these in now and see what we can do to this place to make it look a bit more lively. When placing the trees, I really just wanted to make sure we got a good variety of trees that are from their native lands, that also work in the North American temperate climate, and try and provide as much coverage as we can because they want a lot of coverage. So trees with big canopies are great, and they also don't take up much space on the ground. And then I did want to throw in some smaller trees to kind of flesh it out and make it look more natural, as well as some small ferns and elephant ear plants and things like that that kind of add a bit more ground level for them. I've just realized we're running low on funds. I've spent so long decorating this, I got lost in it. So what we're gonna do is just go in here and take the lowest loan. It'll give us loads more money. I think we'll just take the 20 grand loan on 5% interest. We'll easily make this back in no time. And then we can finish decorating up this habitat and start getting some money for our zoo. Okay, I think that is plenty now. We've got loads of plants in here. We almost drove ourselves into the ground financially just to put the plants in here. And if we click on one of our bush dogs now, we can see environment 36%. We're easily meeting what they need. They're well into the green. And we can always increase this coverage in the future, maybe when we got a bit more money. I've also just replaced the log with this tree because I feel like it would make sense that they dug it into this big tree. You know, it's a big safe area for them back here, surrounded by the little huts. And that kind of gives them their outdoor area as well. And these huge trees, what are they? The ombu trees, give them loads of shelter. So I figured this would probably be good for them. Instead of putting in like a man-made hard shelter, the canopy of this is really shielding. So hopefully that's a more natural version of an outdoor play area to have some bigger trees like this. And these, unfortunately, we're going to have to delete these plants back here, which I didn't realize comes at a cost. Because apparently you don't sell the plants, you just scrap them, I guess. But we've done this. We've enriched the area massively here. So the next step is making money and teaching our guests about the animals. If we go facilities and then guest facilities, we need a donation bin. This is going to be our biggest asset right now. I'm going to put one right in there, and then I'm going to change the color on Paws to be something that kind of fits with our theme. I think we're going to have the same colors everywhere. And seeing as we're more of an we're eco-friendly, let's go for some greens, I think. I think this with the white and the green is pretty good because it's like an off-white, so you can still see the white logo to donate. I think that works. Let's duplicate these basically at every point where the guests clump together to see our animals. And in fact, there's quite a few around here. So, because they can see over the fence anyway. Ooh, I want to put them on the right side of the fence though. I don't want them to have to throw it through the fence to donate. So let's put a few like that. I think that works quite well. They're fairly spread out. We could maybe even move this more to the corner here. And then to give them more of a reason to donate, let's teach them about our animals. So if we go media devices and education, habitat education boards, we want to put these on here. And I think the best way to do this is just align to surface and turn random rotation off. And then we can fit them onto our areas like here. I think that makes sense. And you just need to select the bush dogs. And there they are. Now we can have a bunch of these going around teaching our guests about the animals. And this one is not powered. That's something we need to think about. Okay, in that case, I'm going to leave this one for now. And we'll maybe sort out a more central power system in the future. But for now, we just want to make sure we're getting what we can in here. And I'm also going to add in educational speakers for another way to teach them about the animals. So let's put an educational speaker in behind this board here. And it's going to be about the bush dog. We'll put it on the maximum radius. And then we'll put another one in probably behind here. And then another one in behind this board here. And you don't want them to overlap. So these slightly overlap there. So I'm going to turn The one near the entrance, I think I'm just going to turn the radius down so that they don't overlap, because we don't want that. 16 looks good to me. Oh, and it started to rain. That's not good. But it is looking lush in there, and hopefully they'll be donating and getting us the money that we need. What do the guests think? They think the zoo ticket price is great as well. Okay, let's put this up so it's maybe like $5 to get in and see what they think about that. And then they wish we had some shops. Yes, shops will be the main way to make money, which is probably the next thing we should do. But I want to have a look at our little bush dogs. Look, they've come out to see what this rain is all about. Not sure about this. Oh, look at them having the best time. Oh, and they've been fed. So there's obviously excess food after their feeders, and they've tipped it into the food tray. So they're coming here to have a little snack. They're very, very cute, aren't they? Are there any more we can get? There's some young ones. There's another young male and some females. This female's pretty good. Let's adopt her. And then, honestly, seeing as this is a younger male, I think let's get him as well. And then we've got 4. We've got 2 boys and 2 girls. So let's send these to quarantine. And we know that they just need to go through the quarantine system, and then they can be added into the habitat. So you can get a couple of new friends come join you. If you click on the burrow cams as well, you can enter a camera habitat view so you can see inside. There they are, they're coming in. Oh, they're adorable. Very, very sweet. We can actually hook these up to the habitat boards as well so they can see the burrow cams. We should definitely do that. And have like a live feed. Well, seeing as these guys are in, I think let's learn a little bit more about the bush dogs. The bush dog, also known as the vinegar dog, is a small species of canid found near the pools and rivers of forests, wetlands, savannas, and pasture of South America. It has a squat, stocky build with short legs and tail, a rounded head and snout with small round ears. It has brown fur covering its body with tan fur on its head, and then black fur on its legs and tail. Bush dogs are excellent swimmers. They have webbed feet, and packs chase their prey into water and then surround them. The bush dogs are more strictly carnivorous than any other canids, occupying a similar niche to cats as hyper-carnivores. The bush dog is an elusive species and has only become more widely known in the past 30 years. Anecdotal evidence from native people and scatological evidence are the best sources of information on the animal's wild behavior and ecology. The bush dog is the smallest pack-hunting canid, measuring only 57 to 75 centimeters in length, 20 centimeters to 30 centimeters in height, and weighing around 5 to 8 kilograms. The bush dog is also known as the vinegar dog because its unique scent has been likened to vinegar. So they smell a bit odd. Unfortunately, the bush dog is near threatened. Agricultural land conversion has destroyed much of their habitat by creating large areas of arable land or monoculture woodlands. This habitat degradation and poaching has also reduced the availability of their prey species. Bush dogs are also sometimes killed by domestic dogs, which also spread disease that they've not previously been exposed to. It is thought that bush dog numbers have decreased by 20 to 25% in the past 12 years alone, but due to their elusiveness, they are hard for conservationists to track. Protection measures have been introduced for bush dogs, including hunting bans, although they are difficult to enforce, and environmental corridors are needed to connect the fragmented habitats and populations. So unfortunately, it's not looking good for the bush dog right now. With only 110,000 estimated in the wild, it's a good thing that we're breeding them in this zoo so we can hopefully get their numbers up a little bit. And look, the rain has stopped. That's amazing. In the next video, we're going to carry on expanding the zoo. We'll get some new animals in here and probably get some shops so we can earn some money. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a like. It really helps the channel out. And I'll see you in the next one.